If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. Shannon Sharpe. The feeding frenzy begins. This is going to be my last commentary on the whole Shannon Sharpe thing because frankly, while I don't like what's happening necessarily, I do hope that he hands Tony Busby an L. The reality though is Shannon Sharpe should have been more circumspect and strict about who he lets in his circle. This is basically going to be a follow-up to the same commentary that I gave about Jonathan Majors, because it seems with these well-to-do famous Negroes, they like to pretend basically that they're living more or less in a colorblind society, or in Shannon's case, he would give the occasional lip service to that concept until it's time not to. Now, hands up, who didn't see this one coming? White media reports are that there's another accuser against Shannon Sharpe, only this woman filed a suit against him 2 years ago. Question is, why are we only just hearing about this now? This woman is Michelle Evans, who allegedly is a former girlfriend of 10 years with Shannon Sharpe. She claimed that back in 2010 there had been involuntary oral sex, then sexual assault. This one's claiming that Shannon told her he would destroy her life and use everyone he knew to ruin her. This is the powerful black man canard being dragged out. This is only heard when it's time to accuse a black man of sexually assaulting a white woman. All of a sudden, Shannon Sharpe, who at that time was a former football player, he wasn't even on TV giving commentary. He had retired from the league in 2003. What power did this man have? Who in 2010 was Shannon Sharpe going to go to ruin her on his behalf? So this is what we see. If they can't claim that he's a powerful man, then they resort to he knows influential people. These are the talking points used to prop up these accusations because this is how these lawyers try to make their ridiculous claims sound plausible to those who wish to believe it. Anyway, in 2010, this woman filed a restraining order before she dropped it. She claimed there was a child in the home at the time as her rationale. Okay, she had a child in the home. A Becky who had a child. I'm getting the feeling Shannon Sharpe is just trying to get with anything that's Caucasian. So she was so terrified of this man, allegedly, that she filed a restraining order, and then she was really terrified, so she withdrew it. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But she wasn't done yet. She then filed a defamation suit against Sharpe in 2023, claiming that he had been speaking negatively about her in public and private circles after their relationship had ended. Shannon Sharpe is a celebrity. And at this point, Shannon Sharpe would have been on Fox Sports 1. This is a situation where this man's every utterance would have been followed and there would have been tons of corroboration. So if he's speaking negatively about this woman, wouldn't a lot of people have been coming out of the woodwork going, yep, he was doing all right. Everybody would have already known. Instead, this is the first we're hearing about this woman. These women who make these accusations all use the same playbook, claim that so-and-so black man who hadn't said a word or given a thought to them in years was just so obsessed with them, but they never produce the tons of witnesses and people who can corroborate that this or that person was talking about them incessantly or was following them around. Shouldn't they have tons of phone calls, especially from this guy? I would think it would be extremely easy to have instances of people just coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, here's accounts that we gave about Shannon Sharpe. I mean, he's not exactly somebody who's easy to miss. You know, common sense would say that if a celebrity like Shannon Sharpe was running around dogging this woman out for any reason, a lot of people would have been talking about it. 2 years ago, Shannon Sharpe was on one of the biggest sports shows on cable. If he was sitting there talking trash about her, I think somebody would have noticed. Now, at this point, Shannon Sharpe is saying that he's stepping away from ESPN to focus on dealing with these lawsuits. Of course, that sounds like he jumped rather than waiting to get pushed. Sharpe's lawyers have pointed out that this is the pattern that befalls so many famous men who get put in this position, though it needs to be noted it happens to some men far more than others. On the TV show House of Cards, Kevin Spacey's character said everything is about sex except for sex. Sex is about power. This is why bedroom politics is important to know. Dr. John Henrik Clarke talked about it. For the dominant society, having sex with the people they oppress is merely recreational, nothing more. And yet you always got these silly Negroes who think they have sex with people outside the community, and as far as they're concerned, I'm in love. But people from the dominant society tend to be only in lust, or in the case of Zuniga, wanting a big black baby and a wedding so they can get the bag. Sex is yet another lever to be pulled to get what they want, and in a society where power is based on race, it's suicidal to allow oneself to forget that. But it needs to be pointed out that Shannon Sharpe had initially asked this Zuniga woman, the OnlyFans model turned wannabe baby mama turned litigant, to sign a non-disclosure agreement early in their relationship. but she refused. Now that right there should have been the last time they had any contact. This is a man who knew the deal. He knew what was supposed to have been done. A lot of celebrities require people to sign NDAs in order to enter their homes or to have substantial dealings with them. Prince used to do that a lot. So there's plenty of precedent for this. And it's there for a reason. Shannon Sharpe had established a rule, and then he decided to break his own rule. And for what? For sex. Because that's what Shannon thought it was about. These thoughts out here know it's about power and that the society has slanted things in their favor. When you tell someone to do something and they refuse to do it, they're telling you they don't respect you, and they don't have to do what you say. You got Shannon Sharpe, a rich and famous pro athlete and TV sports commentator. In the meanwhile, you got this OnlyFans model who, well, basically she's got some pictures of herself showing her butt online, and that's pretty much all she brings to the table. A person with nothing to offer is also a person with nothing to lose either. He was undeniably the stronger partner in this relationship, wasn't even close. He was the one that she was chasing after, not the other way around. And yet when she defied him, she was doing it to test him. She wanted to see whether or not wiggling her bony behind in front of him was going to mean more to him than his own rules. Was he in charge or was she? That's what she was testing to see. Which one of them was leading and which one of them was following, and he showed exactly which was which. When somebody shows you that they can't take instructions, you don't make an exception. What you do is you make an example out of them. But that only happens if you're thinking with the head on your shoulders. Now, this is not to say that this woman still might not have tried to pull a lawsuit regardless, but it is to say there's a reason why nobody heard about this other woman, Michelle what's-her-name, until now. And even in her case, she didn't need to have filed any earlier suits to go after Sharpe. The legal infrastructure has always been there to enable these kind of lawsuits against famous black men in particular. The law that this Evans woman is using to go after Sharpe is New York City's Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act. Now, that law's been on the books for 20 years, but apparently it had lapsed, though back in 2023, this law was extended for 2 more years until February 2025, and that was done so that accusers could bring new accusations regardless of when these alleged incidents had occurred. And that's when this Michelle woman suddenly decided that after over a decade, she just had to file a lawsuit now. And what a surprise, we see these being used disproportionately against rich or famous black men. Nothing happens in a vacuum under white supremacy. On a side note, remember Michael Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch? He was charged by the feds with sexual assault and a million other things at the same time that Diddy was. But Jeffries was immediately released on bond, while Diddy, on the other hand, is still cooling his heels awaiting trial. Jeffries is homosexual, and he was accused of luring young men to drug-fueled sex parties in New York City, the Hamptons, and elsewhere, promising these men modeling contracts if they just did whatever. Now, this is a man who was in a position to make people's careers with a wave of his hand. That's what he held over their heads. This is a powerful man. Not someone who knows somebody, but a man who actually has power and wielded it. And yet, he's getting the velvet glove treatment, even from the white media. They just decided that any and all accusations against him would be allowed to fall down the memory hole. There will be no wall-to-wall coverage of this man. Let's just try to forget about it, and we'll see what comes of it later, but we won't be looking very hard. As usual, certain people get the velvet glove treatment. Earlier this month, federal prosecutors asked that Jeffries be deemed unfit to stand trial due to dementia. Yes, the federal prosecutors told the judge, this guy's unfit for trial. Hey, remember that time that prosecutors said that about that black defendant? Me neither. Now, prosecutors have said that they want Jeffries to be put into the custody of the Bureau of Prisons to receive treatment and see if he can stand for trial at a later date. But one has to wonder, what does custody of the Bureau of Prisons mean when they say it? Does it mean that he actually gets put behind bars, or does it mean what it meant for Jeffrey Epstein? That he only has to report to a Bureau of Prisons facility or a Bureau of Prisons representative once or twice a week for an evaluation? And I'm still waiting to see when Lifetime's going to put out Surviving Michael Jeffries. I'm still waiting to see when Kamal Dumbbell's going to go ahead and talk about powerful men who use their power to coerce people into sex. Hey, come on, Abercrombie & Fitch was huge among teenagers. That's your hook right there for putting together a series. But of course, they don't do that unless the person's the right color. Rich and powerful only applies depending on the color of your skin. So Shannon Sharpe's getting put through the ringer. This is the reason that I made that video about Jonathan Majors and how it's crucially important for black people in general and black men in particular to be hyper vigilant about who you let into your circle. If you're a committed bachelor and you just want to have a bunch of bed buddies, you better accept the fact that it only takes one to ruin your life. That's the reality. And this threat becomes exponentially greater when you're rich and famous. When you choose your sexual partners from OnlyFans, can you really be surprised when this kind of thing happens? When you maintain contact with someone who uses phrases like, put a big black baby in me, you're telling that person that you won't just tolerate disrespect, you'll actually encourage it. Typically, when swirling goes wrong, we see a white man who begins calling a black woman the N-word and other things. And while it's true that white or just non-black women in general don't tend to use racial slurs when they're dealing with black men, the reality is they don't have to. White men don't sue black women for sexual assault, even if they're rich. So the exposure and risk for black men is far higher if they decide to go swirling. These black men need to figure out that when these non-black women decide to show disrespect, it won't take the form of suddenly bursting out into a rant of racial slurs. Instead, it will be insidious at first. It'll take the form of sneak dissing here and there, like talking about a big black baby, etc. They want to test a weak black man to see if he'll take that or if he'll drop them. And when it comes to these black men in pro sports or the music business, these guys got the golden nod from coaches and music executives precisely because they showed themselves to be subservient and deferential to the dominant society. So whenever these black men say something to these people, it's never an order. It's only a suggestion. They're ripe for a fall, and it's obvious. Some Becky or Gina comes along and their nose is wide open and they just can't say no. This is weakness. And we see it not just when it comes to sex, but in so many other arenas of the society too. People will test you as a black person. They'll disrespect you, taunt you, sneak diss you, and throw shade at you, and when you call them on it, they'll claim that you just misunderstood, or I didn't mean it like that, or I can't believe you made this about race, I'm so hurt. When the reality is they know exactly what they did. What they didn't know was that you were going to call them on it. Too many black people will tolerate disrespect just to maintain business ties with this or that person from the dominant society, or to keep certain social connections going, or merely to maintain interracial sexual access with someone who has nothing to offer them. Black people always do it, and it's always wrong. Shannon Sharpe wasn't able to put his foot down. He didn't keep high-quality people in his circle. Men who have achieved things are supposed to know better than to be around model, actresses, whatevers. You're supposed to be around people who are on your level. I'm going to repeat it because it needs to be said. If somebody's not bringing anything to the table, that also means they have nothing to lose. And when someone who lives under a system of anti-black racism allows themselves to forget that, well, the next lesson they learn is that there's more than one way to get screwed. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Shrampstein, Nathan Gunter, Michael Burton, Norma Anthony, and Melvinia Miles. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.